Welcome, everybody. It is 6:30 p.m. and I'll call to order the meeting of the Board of Intermediate District 287. It is Thursday, September 25th, 2025. And before we cover our agenda, I'll ask Director Brecky to read the mission statement and start our board member introductions.
The mission of Intermediate District 287 is to be the premier provider of innovative specialized services to ensure that each member district can meet the unique learning needs of its students. And I am Crystal Brackey from Richfield Public Schools.
Rich Sec, Perkins Center.
Erin Orcutt from Orono.
Keith T. Osseo Area Schools.
Caroline Long, Robbinsdale.
Tim Ross, Eden Prairie.
Shannon and Grayson representing Hopkins Public Schools.
Ann Casey, proudly representing St. Louis Park.
Dan Genestra, Wayzata Public Schools.
And Michael Burton.
From Edina Public Schools.
Perfect timing. All right, thank you, everyone. We have a pretty short agenda tonight. You'll actually see that a lot of our staff members are virtual so that they don't have to be here for a really short meeting. So, hi, everybody that's virtual. We're glad you're here. And also we're glad that you can be at home for a quick one. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Kim and second by Shannon. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the agenda is approved. Next up, we have audience opportunity to speak. I don't think we have anyone here. tonight.
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Wani. And then we have our consent agenda containing routine business items. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Michael. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Keith. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the agenda is approved. We will pick up with success and recognitions at our next meeting. So we're just getting started with the school year, so we'll have some more successes and recognitions to do then. And then we are up to our superintendent's report, so I'll throw it over to Superintendent Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, September is Minnesota School Board Recognition Month, and if you're like, I think they did this in the spring last time. You did. The board had a week, I think it was in February, but they changed their whole month now. Yeah, it's in September. So, as we recognize School Board Appreciation Month, I want to take the time to recognize District 287's Board of Directors. Not only do you serve in your home districts, you also agree to sit on District 287 School Board on behalf of the students we serve together. You championed our mission and govern to ensure that District 287 is a safe and inclusive learning and working environment. You advocate for resources to allow staff to flourish and students to explore their potential. You ask hard questions and seek collaborative solutions, always keeping the well-being of our students at the center. I am grateful for your commitment to equity and excellence. Your actions truly align to our strategic plan's goals, values, and beliefs. And please know that your dedication does not go unnoticed. The ripple effects of your service touches every classroom, every staff member, every family or caregiver in our district. I will end saying Happy School Board Recognition Month to District 287's amazing school board members, and enjoy a sweet treat on behalf of the district administrative team.
Very
We have a little cookie with our logo
Thank you.
and a little award of recognition. So
thank
thank
you.
you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The logo looks really great. It really pops.
Well done. The bakers.
Okay, then next up, you again. For our, you're gonna tee this up?
Yep, I will
Virtual
tee it up.
board meetings.
So you also have a paper copy in front of you of what the board needs to know. At the last legislative session, districts are allowed to have interactive technology or virtual board meetings. So some rules have changed that are now in effect as of July 1. The law no longer requires the remote location to be open and accessible to the public. And the requirement that remote participation from a closed location be related to an illness or military service. So they are opening up and acknowledging that sometimes you're able to be virtually. And so what I also provided for you an example of the language changes in statute so you can see where it changed. and really want to open it up to a discussion as you navigate this with your home district and in District 287. First, just wanting to know if there are any board members that have already addressed this or talked about it in points within their member districts or home districts.
I know Kim,
Yeah, so we have members virtual routinely because one of our board members is in the Army Reserve. And so in fact, last Monday, he was remote. And so I'll just say from personal experience, it works okay when somebody, and giving the flexibility when somebody just can't be there in person is great. The two things logistically that can be challenging sometimes is every vote has to be a roll call vote. And so with a board this size, and even at our size with 7, we had a lot of votes Monday on different things. And so it's just every single time you have to do a roll call vote. And the second thing, and this is not as frequent, but if somebody's remote and you're going into closed session, there's technology stuff because you have to open the, meeting in a virtual meeting that anybody can access. And then when you go into closed session, that one has to be closed. And whoever is remote has to get sent a new link for a new Zoom that's closed, not open. And so there's just, it's absolutely doable, but there's just that technology component to it as well. But it's really nice to have that flexibility. Because there were times when I was out of town on business and it's like, it has to be open and accessible. Like somebody's going to come to Starbucks in Dallas, right? Or whatever. It's just, that was always kind of annoying. So I think the flexibility is good. But I also think that, when I think about my home district and this board, out of respect to staff, or people that are coming for share the success or whatever. My personal preference is to be in person, but like I said, I think it's great to have the flexibility to still be able to participate if you just have to be out of town for
Yeah.
some reason.
that I think tracks with our conversation about, like, we don't necessarily want to encourage people to use that all the time, but there were, circumstances where, like you said, somebody has to be out of town. If we're short, like a quorum, and we've had that happen here. And, maybe for like a meeting like tonight where we had very little on the meeting agenda, this is actually sort of what we started talking about. We're like, oh, this could have been a virtual meeting. So in the future, something that was really short and didn't have a lot of action items, to your point about going around 12 times.
Yeah,
Or like, I think a snow emergency is a good example for this board, because some of us come from
well, we're
far
geographically
away, right? We're way more.
dispersed by
yes.
definition.
So somebody would have to be here.
Yeah.
Well, while I'm the board chair, I would always offer to be the one, because I live probably, I'm one of the closest. You and I are probably competitors for closest. So, but that would be another example where we might choose a remote meeting if there was something that had to be done and we had a weather situation. So, or have other boards been doing this? Yeah.
I've done a remote one. I think myself and the chair were out same time, traveling for work and stuff like that. It's not ideal, and it's different than the situation because it's, we only have 6 folks on our board, right? So 2 people being out is pretty big deal. So, but yeah, we have a little bit more flexibility here, so.
Yeah, we have members, so I'm wondering, is there a difference between, like, when I think about virtual board meetings, I feel like the meeting is virtual as opposed to board members joining virtually. So are there different, like, we've had that now in the past, and this actually is nice because you don't have to have that huge waiting period so that you can participate. So if something happens last minute, like you get COVID, perhaps, you can still participate. But I'm wondering, is there a difference between like that situation where you have 1 or 2 board members joining a regular board meeting virtually and actually having a virtual meeting?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's kind of, like snow or like just saying that this, like something like today was going to be a virtual meeting, like that most people would be, somebody would be here, but everybody would be
Right.
versus like one or two people. And to your point, Keith, like we don't have that situation where if one or two people are gone, we can't hold a meeting, right? We have to have
Right.
6 people gone to not be able to hold a meeting. And so as long as we're sort of keeping up with our notifications on attendance and stuff like that, that probably wouldn't be too much of an issue unless there was something like somebody was out of town and there was something really important that we were voting on or, whatever. Yeah.
It looks like that there's no difference in status.
No.
Between those two things. And so I think it's more in our practice. Like, I think us being notified, this is gonna be the virtual meeting. We either need somebody to be in the office or we know who's gonna be in the office, everybody else stay home. Versus the like individual case, which is I'm not gonna be there and therefore need to coordinate with the chair, the superintendent and Juanine to make sure people are prepared.
Right. And I think that would more likely happen if a bunch of people said, I can't be there. And then we wouldn't have, if we were close to not having a quorum, then maybe there would be 1 or 2 people who could join virtually.
Yeah.
I don't think it would necessarily have to be an expectation for people to join virtually if they're right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, as far as notification, all we do is if we know somebody's gonna be remote at the top of the agenda,
Mm.
we list all the board members and then we say board member X will be participating remotely. It used to be from
Right.
the address and everything else. and Now we don't have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Michael.
Well, we had to use virtual, a year and a half ago, when we had protests that basically disrupted our ability to hold our meetings. And this was at the end of the year, we had budget stuff, so on and so forth. And so we were able to utilize the virtual setting to do that. And we actually ended up, because at that time you still had the requirement of listing where you're physically were going to be. We had the superintendent and 1 board member at the district office, and then we had 2 other separate groups that were one was at our bus garage and the other one was somewhere else, or I think it was at a city facility or whatever it is, just so that it was still accessible and whatever it is, so on and so forth. I think the ability from a statutory place, the one thing that was really troublesome is when you did your address, it's like if you were out of town and you were at a family out of town, then you're having to publish your personal address and whatever and so on. Or if maybe you have a sick kid and you need to be at home with your sick kid. Well, again, posting your public address and whatever it is and so on. So I think there's a little bit of consternation about that. And considering everything that's happened since then, that's even more so. So I think this has been a helpful thing, but there are all sorts of reasons as to why either an individual or the organization as a whole needs to do something virtually, whether it's planned or unplanned.
If an emergency does come up and I jump online and you have a quorum, can I just listen in then and not vote? And that would we wouldn't need a roll call.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
easy solution.
Yes, that is.
Unless one of you votes the way I don't want. And then my other question is, are we allowed to send alternates here if we can't make it?
No.
No, alternates have come, but then they're not like.
They don't.
They're not voting members. Yeah, they're not.
That would be similar to you joining virtually without being able to vote. Yeah. Yes. That's a
Great
great
question.
point though. And it's something to add to our kind of just our thoughts about our practices. Because this board is different than our boards of 6 and 7 that are in our, local communities.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good point.
I'm on Northwest Suburban Intermediate School Districts Board as well. We allow an alternate to vote because
Oh, okay.
there's only 6 of us. And if one of us is gone, you can have an alternate,
And
another board member, as long as it's designated at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I know Caroline was here several times as an alternate in the past for Renee. And so if there's, just reflections about how to make an experience better for an alternate within the parameters of our bylaws, I think it would be great to hear any suggestions. Not right now, just.
I like that.
And Dan, you were.
We utilized the virtual interactive option a few months ago when we were discussing our election years issue. There was a board member who was out of town. And so that individual was able to join us virtually, and that individual had to be seen, heard at all times. Which to kind of turn to why I have some reservations about this. It wasn't just this individual who we saw on camera. And so my concern is not that I wouldn't trust anyone at this table. I would trust all of you. I think what my concern would be is, does this allow somebody else who's in the room with you to unfairly influence your vote? Because that was something we did observe. And you can probably tell I'm being as, indirect about this as possible. But when we see someone who isn't a board member just out of shot on camera, we start to worry, is it just the board member who's casting their vote? Or is someone else now a part of our meeting? Do we have an eighth board member in Wayzata Schools? So, it's bringing this issue, public, which I have some reservations about. I didn't want to, say this perhaps after the meeting when, things were to a close, but that is the one concern I have is it a 7-member board, or do we have an additional person influencing outcomes?
So, I also connected with Director Remical. But Minnetonka. Minnetonka is,
And he's not here because they have board meetings tonight and they are discussing this policy.
so they decided to develop a policy around it. And just curious if districts are developing policies, just putting something on, I've seen it just on the websites for other districts that have talked about it, just for full transparency to the community.
Yeah.
Could be addressing some of those things of expectations while being virtual.
Kim says Amber does not.
We don't. I mean, basically, kind of the statute,
Right.
the policy,
Yep.
right?
Okay.
Interesting. Right.
A preference or?
Yeah, I mean, I like having a set of practices around it.
Well, and maybe it's a procedure, not a policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would make more sense.
Say, who decides if we're going to be virtual, and then how are board members notified, and what's the responsibility of a board member to notify, the chair and the superintendent if they're going to be virtual?
I gathered your input. If there's others, send it to me or we can keep discussing. Otherwise, what I could do is write up a procedure for you to review at the next board.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Sound okay? I heard it's gonna be a snowy winter, so. Hopefully we won't have to do that, but. Perfect. All right, anything else on that? We have no instructional report. We have no business services and labor relations report. Board business, we really have none, except just to announce, that the Get on the Bus and 2209 signups are gonna go out in the Friday update tomorrow. So check for them in there if you haven't already seen them. And please do sign up. They're coming up soon now because it's next month.
Mhm.
So I know we have both a Get on the Bus and a 209 in October. And AMSD is next Friday, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow, and it is the state demographer. So always a good one. Anybody have anything for, I told you it would be quick, for once around the table?
Our little representative there from Robbinsdale just needs our thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
I know they're not much, but you hang in
Yeah,
there.
sure.
And for those of you that don't understand sarcasm, this is sarcasm. We need to dissolve as a board because autism has been cured if people just stop taking Tylenol. So we ought to make a plan, 10 years out, we just shut down. I'm just saying,
Thank you, Mr. Zach.
you can all shut down now. Being an autistic parent, I have never been so angry at somebody in my life. And the autism community is in shambles right now. So keep them in your prayers. But stupidity has consequences.
I did want to first say thank you for sharing, when you shared with us the flu and vaccine clinics that are being held and so on and so forth, whatever it is. It was good to know. Considering again, also there's all the crazy misinformation and things that are going out with that standpoint, and making that a part of what we do and whatever it is. I thought that was great. My once around is for anyone who's interested that we had our special meeting this week as we continue on our superintendent search process. So we did finally decide on which search firm we're going to use and start working with the public and stakeholders on what our profile is and so on and so forth. It's a very, there's only one person on our 7-person board who's actually done this before. And it's a very interesting thing to go through. So for those who've already done it, feel free to, you can be proactive if you want as far as things to look out for. For those of you who haven't, it's a very interesting process.
You need to share who you're using.
Yeah, we actually, we had 3 firms come in, and SEC, so school exec, who actually did a Marcy search, was there. And so Dr. Dregseth his literally name is on a building across this parking lot from where we were. MSBA, and then there was a firm technically out of Illinois called HYA, that we looked at. And we ended up deciding to go with MSBA, which I think was a little surprising. But MSBA has been kind of reformulating their approach to things. And they seem to have a very well-defined process of what they wanted to do. And there was a certain number of people. Our board would have been fine with any of them. We really would have. And then one comment that was made is that our chair really had sort of a closer connection to MSBA. MSBA helped us with our interim superintendent with Dr. Bittman, who we have now. And she felt really kind of close to them and so on and so forth. And one comment was, she's the one who's going to ultimately spend the most time with them.
Yeah.
If she's the one, and nobody else really felt strongly one way or the other, then that's fine. We obviously know MSBA knows how to work with school boards. We don't have to worry about that. And I know, didn't they work with, yeah, we had a list of things that had been done. But it's hard, when you're, especially if you have a board we've been described as functional. I don't know if I would necessarily, I don't go that far, but like compared to other people, but the hard part can be is that nobody wants to then say, X, Y, everyone's kind of like amenable to stuff. So that could be a curse on the other side, but I guess we'll take that versus the alternative. But anyway, so that's kind of where that's at.
I had a good conversation with your chair about it, because I've been in searches with like 2 of those firms and and what I tried to tell her was like, you're not gonna be able to go wrong. You're gonna have a great search. You're gonna get someone great. Like,
Yeah. The hard part is, and not to tell stories out of school, but the hard part is us not having our own group think about it. And there's a lot of opinions about Edina. Let me say this: a lot of opinions about Edina in Edina. And I'm sure there's a ton more opinions about Edina outside of Edina. The hard part is that we don't think we're going to have a problem finding candidates. And so the question is do we really need a search firm who's going to somehow broaden our perspective with that or not?
Yeah.
So we'd really want to do a national search from that standpoint. And what I've learned is what I didn't know about superintendent searches in Minnesota, not the easiest thing if you want to try to pull people to Minnesota, unless they have some connection to Minnesota.
Yeah.
And so that was a really interesting learning to go through that process and examine that. So,
good luck.
yeah, thank you.
Don't hire in the winter.
No,
That might help.
Actually interviewing.
No, Stay away from.
Right, if you're gonna try to hire a national person to come in the wintertime, but you know what though? I'll tell you this right now. I think all of you natives need to get over that because I don't think that's really that big a deal anymore. I mean, I was saying you're
You said it. Now it's coming.
Your companies that
Almanac, I didn't make that up.
I was gonna say, if you're a snow oriented person, you've been pretty disciplined the last several years of being able to do outdoor activities, so.
If you're a superintendent, you are just fine.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Fair, yeah.
Exactly.
Cheaper.
That's true.
Yep.
Well, I don't know how many of you all are having elections, but Hopkins has 3 seats up for election on the school board. And then also we have 2 ballot questions. So we have a renewal of one of our levies and then a bond a referendum. So yeah, just doing lots and lots of work around that, educating our public, and then we just had the candidate forum last week. And so we have 5 candidates, 8 seats, so it should be interesting.
Is anyone here up for election this fall? And are any other districts having,
Let's not get it.
yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, to second what Shannon said, we also have our school board elections in fall. Early voting is open as of September 19th. You can vote early, just down the road at our district service center. We have 3 seats open, and our candidate forum will be in the Plymouth City Hall chambers next Tuesday, which is September 30th at 7 p.m. So hope to see you there. 6 candidates vying for 3 seats.
Richfield Public Schools has a school board election with 3 people running for 3 seats, and I was voter number 1. It was like,
Well done.
it was 4 o'clock on that Friday, and the one was like, "Oh, you're the first person who's come." Like, all right.
Tough decision.
I was way more excited than I think she was prepared for.
So who'd you vote for?
All 3 candidates on the ballot. I'm very excited about them and what perspectives they'll bring to the district.
Actually, if you don't mind me asking, do we think that the virtual ability would have any impact on accessibility of potential candidates to run for school board?
Let's see more candidates.
I don't know if that's a big enough barrier or not, but
Well, I wonder, like, I think that it might come down to it if we start having consistently board members attending virtually,
Yeah.
and we then start having a conversation about, do we need to start having a policy?
Right, yeah.
Like, we kind of have an expectation. with
Yeah.
Yeah.
Board members, but then you also run into equity issues. around
Right.
that Too, right?
Yeah.
How many people, not only can't address the board, if the only time you're able to do that is before or after a board meeting, but serve on the board.
Right.
So
that's why I asked. 'Cause
you get the interesting question.
yeah, because we had the same, I would call it an issue in the sense of if you have 3 seats open, you only have 3 people running. That's not, I would not desire that to be the norm. But I think equity and access is definitely a question mark in any community.
I'll share, I guess now it's a little bit of a discussion, so I'll share my perspective. We have a very diverse board in Wayzata. Folks are kind of all over the place. And I think an observation I've had and what my concern would be in making it virtual is people who maybe have to attend virtually. Well, are they going to be able to attend events? Are they going to be able to be as engaged and involved? And so that's my real concern. We have people who are really, really busy running for the board, serving on the board, who might prefer a virtual option. Well, they're not going to be at all the events that make being a Wayzata school board member so special. So that would be my concern.
Well, and it can also, jumping off what you're saying, it could also impact committee work.
Yeah.
You know, if you're so busy that you can't get to board meetings in person, going to committee meetings and being involved in that could be tough too.
I do think it's important to say though, like, what is the requirement of being on the board and what are the things that people can choose to do?
Yeah,
Because it can then also feel like you're targeting people who are like
right.
able to do more versus people who are able to do less. And I think the same thing could come up if it's, oh, everything's been fine as far as virtual meetings, but then maybe when like one person is doing it consistently, then it can feel really targeting. And if it's like, oh, all of a sudden now it's a problem.
Yeah,
So I think having some guardrails can probably also help making it feel like this is not a personal thing about people, but it's rather being really clear about these are the expectations of being on this board. So that people know exactly what those expectations are and not things that I think are implied that can carry weight, what makes somebody a better board member.
That's a really good question. That brings up a different question then. Does everybody have an actual norm that they've written down as far as in their operating norm of their boards and so on and so forth?
Yeah.
Really? You do? Yeah. Yeah, we do too. I don't know if that's commonplace across everybody. Yeah. The thing is, it's probably no direction, right? Going one, it's not an either
Right.
or.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's an and.
And it's more similar here because our expectation for board members is that you come to board meetings.
Yes.
And then we have events that are optional that we are encouraging everyone to come to, but understanding that like the events that we have are during the day. And that is something that there are people who can never come during the day, which is completely fine. So that doesn't ever become a requirement or, a true expectation. It is totally optional and just, what's the word? A bonus, I guess. So plan to keep coming to board meetings because I love seeing you all here in person. It's as we all remember, maybe from COVID, it's just not as fun. It's not as fun online. So, any other, speaking of voting, my younger child is 18 today, so they will be voting. And I also want to get out of here so I can continue to celebrate that. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved by Shannon, second by Crystal. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Chair votes aye, and we are at 7:01.